Are you ready, Matt?
I'm ready.
You're supposed to say aye, aye, Captain.
Roger that. Hi, everyone, and welcome to BrightSign Live, where we discuss all things related to the BrightSign player ecosystem. I'm your co-host, Matt Harnack. I'm a video producer for BrightSign. You might recognize my voice from such films as the BrightSign Series 4 video or Welcome to BrightSign, Welcome to BSN.cloud.
That's my favorite.
John, this is our ninth and final episode of BrightSign Live, and it's also our holiday special, right?
Yep,
So
absolutely. Trying to be
we're
festive.
wearing our festive outfits, our festive holiday sweaters. In this episode, we're going to be showing the basics of BrightSign, of BrightAuthor Connected, including how to do player setup and how to use the software. And we're going to move really fast. So if you have any questions, please use the Ask button. And if you're interested, we have a resource called BrightSign Academy. And you can enroll by visiting brightsign.biz and navigating to the resources, or just taking a snap of this QR code and it will get you to the same spot. Today I'm joined by John Arnio. He's a solutions architect for BrightSign. John, can you tell us what we're going to be discussing today?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so we've got a pretty full agenda. We're mixing it up a little bit. If you've watched some of these shows in the past, you've kind of gotten a sense for what we cover. We've got some new stuff, which should be cool. So we're going to try to keep it relatively simple, but we're going to move kind of quickly through this. We have at the beginning here, we're going to cover some new features because there was a pretty significant rollout of our software. Has a lot of new features in it that we're really proud of. So we're going to go over those new features just to kind of let everybody know what to expect. Then we're going to talk some more about Control Cloud. This is a common theme. We do talk about it a lot in all of our shows, but this is one of those like greatest hits, topics. I think it's one of, if you had to pick one that was the single most important thing to know about our ecosystem, to me, Control Cloud really stands, out as the most important. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to go through some examples of like why it's so important, and some things to consider, best practices, that sort of thing. And then we're of course going to do a presentation build, so you will be able to jump into the software. I'm going to build something live and hopefully get it right the first time. It's always a fun experience. But yeah, so we're actually gonna do a build. We're gonna incorporate some concepts, and just show some of the things that you can do. And then of course we will do our Q&A at the end. But first, we have a special guest, don't we?
That's right. Today we are joined by Aaron Rollins. He's the Vice President of Product Management, and he's joining us today to share some improvements we've made on BrightAuthor Connected and the BrightSign OS. Aaron, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about some of the changes that we're rolling out?
Yeah, absolutely. My name's Aaron. I'm talking to you right now from the Los Gatos office here at BrightSign. And yeah, I'm super excited to tell you about what we've been up to. Some of you may have already be experiencing this with the latest release of BrightAuthor Connected, the new BrightSign OS, and a big update we did to BSN.cloud.
Great.
Yeah, we're here to kind of talk about four things that we think are really useful and exciting for everybody. The first thing we introduced when we came out with Control Cloud was giving people the ability to control their devices without having to pay any extra licensing fee, right? So having this kind of online platform that allows you to do device control, and we're super committed to this at BrightSign and trying to improve that experience. And so the first thing we've done with this release is really focus on more device control, especially in the kind of the real time space. So what we've
We call
added,
that Control Cloud, and it's a free subscription, right?
yes, thank you very much. Yeah, the Control Cloud subscription, and these Control Cloud players now give you the ability to, in real time, actually edit the device properties. So the property panel on the network tab has been updated and revamped, and now basically all the properties from player names, to network configurations can be changed and adapted in real time. And one of the things we hear from a lot of customers would be things like with Wi-Fi, wanting to be able to change the SSID and password of a player that's on Wi-Fi. So this tool gives the ability to go into a player if you have the new Wi-Fi set up and change the SSID and password and apply it, and in real time the player will change that configuration. Other things that people might want to modify would be the download limits, right? So you want to change how much bandwidth the player will use at any given time, right? So all those settings are now modifiable again in real time using the properties panel.
I love that. That's a really useful new change.
Yeah, and then we did this sort of coincident with the launch of our BrightSign mobile product, and so the properties panel now actually includes the BrightSign mobile LTE modem as part of the network interfaces that can be used and configured. And this now lets you have like multiple interfaces, so you can use the BrightSign mobile as a backup or a primary, and it gives you all the details you need about the modem. It'll give you the modem identifying information, as well as the connectivity of the modem, or the signal strength of the modem. And again, you can use it just like any other interface on a BrightSign to control what content is downloaded over it and how much bandwidth you're using, all right through the properties panel.
What does it mean to do interface priority? What's that all about?
Yeah, so that lets the player understand which interface you would prefer it to use in any given situation. So you can give priority to, let's say, your Ethernet connection, but if something were to go wrong with that connection and you had the modem installed, the player would then start to use the modem as a backup, essentially. So you can give yourself some levels of redundancy, as well as being able to decide that you want to, let's say, download content and videos over the Ethernet, but if that connection goes down, you don't want to download the images and videos over the modem. You want to conserve bandwidth there, but you still want to be able to get health and other things off of the player.
That makes sense.
Then your control cloud connectivity never goes down. You can still go to your network tab, see your players, green check boxes, hit the gear, check all the status. Yeah, okay. That's very cool.
Yeah, because it's what we're really trying to help people do is keep their networks online and and running and know what's going on and be able to troubleshoot them, because obviously maximizing the uptime of the network is beneficial for everybody.
Yeah.
Isn't that something that is also new? How do you check the network performance over the past 24 hours?
Yeah, so that's a feature that we added as well. So on the dashboard, you might be used to seeing the kind of thermometer, we call it, which tells you kind of the current status of your network. But now there's another little icon on the right-hand side that will give you the network status. So if you were to click on that, you can see kind of what your player has been up to, or what your network, I should say, has been up to, and the players on your network over the last 24 hours.
Cool. So it looks like there's like 6 players on this network, and they have mainly been online with maybe a few interruptions, few warnings. Okay. Exactly.
Yeah, and if you remember, warnings just to indicate that the player has missed a couple of check-in intervals, but that can happen in kind of normal operations as well. But it kind of gives you an idea that maybe you should keep an eye on one of your players.
Great. Wow, that's cool.
So then the next thing that we've done that we're pretty excited about is we've brought additional network security to BSN.cloud. So now, as part of your device setup and configuration, you can actually use network security like 802.1x, or on the Wi-Fi side, WPA Enterprise. So you can configure that security here, including all your certificate files, and then download that to create an SD card image that you can put on your player to have it join any network successfully.
That's going to make a lot of network administrators happy.
Yeah, and it's very it's something that more and more the players are going into these enterprise environments, and these are the kind of changes that are becoming kind of standard across the industry.
Makes sense.
And then the last part, which I think is really exciting, is being able to download a partner application, and this kind of couples with the last feature, which is, you're creating this network package because there are certain requirements like 802.1x that you might that might be required to get the player on the network, and so now you can do those kind of custom network configurations, IP addresses, proxy servers, network security, but actually as part of your safe setup file, you can include your favorite partner applications. So as you're deploying, with a BrightSign CMS partner, you can get all the benefits of configuring the player using BrightAuthor Connected as part of the setup process.
Very cool. And then just a reminder too, when you set up a player with a partner application or these CMS, partners that we have available here, these players will still show up in your network tab under BrightAuthor Connected. So regardless of how it's receiving its content, right, you still want to maintain that continuity of managing all your players in one place.
Exactly.
So you can have a control cloud network, meaning you can see your players, but they can be deployed on these partner applications that maybe have a CMS that's more adapted to your work environment. Would that be a fair way to explain what's going on here?
Exactly, and that's really the spirit behind Control Cloud, right? The spirit behind Control Cloud is allowing you as a BrightSign customer to sort of pick the best software solution for your kind of content needs, but still maintaining a level of device control and device management, kind of regardless of what you're doing on the content side. So you can still update your operating system, make network changes, kind of get basic health status of the players. All of those sort of things are all part of the Control Cloud. And again, we'll work with any CMS that you want to deploy.
So it sounds like a lot of these updates that were done are really they're very much centered around network configuration and then making sure that your players can not only be set up initially with a lot of flexible configurations, but now also you made reference to the fact that you can do this live to a player. You can go into its actual properties panel and make those configuration changes directly to a player without having to reset it up, for example.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're kind of using the real-time connectivity associated with BSN.cloud to the player to be able to modify kind of the full gambit of settings on the player, from the name of the player to the description to the network configuration. Everything is configurable after the player's already been deployed.
Yeah, and it's really cool that these features are extended to the Control Cloud only subscriptions as well.
Yeah. Some of this stuff was available, so people who use Content Cloud might say, oh, well, we've been able to make some of these configurations, and that's true. They did exist previously, but now we've made that update and kind of pushed that capability all the way down to the free subscription inside of Control Cloud.
Yeah, let's take a look at the at that player properties panel, because there's at first glance this doesn't look entirely different. Like this is the standard network view. We got Control Cloud. Like we demonstrate this all the time in our shows, right? But there is a lot more going on this properties panels on the right.
Yeah. So the big change is from a visuals perspective is going to be inside the network settings. So you're going to see, if you have multiple network interfaces, that you can select them and select which data types are again going over each part of each interface. You're going to see your network configuration information and be able to change that. Again, rate limiting, all of that stuff is now available. And again, this is going to be supported for the standard Ethernet port on a player, Wi-Fi, BrightSign mobile LTE modem, USB Ethernet adapters, like basically any network connector on the player. And then you're able to adjust the priorities in real time between each of these network interfaces that you have deployed.
So now if I
So that's where
plugged
the
in a cellular, USB modem to the player, like if I have one running now and I plug it in, that's going to show up here in this stack.
yeah. So yeah, now the player uh, will actually auto find new network interfaces that are connected, and yeah, present them in this interface that you can configure them after the player has already been deployed.
That's cool.
So if you decided to add a Wi-Fi module in the field, or I think the most likely scenario is adding a BrightSign mobile modem, then yeah, you'd be able to plug that in, and then you can do all the configuration from here.
From my perspective, that's a wonderful new update. I really appreciate that new feature. Definitely.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, I think, like I said, what we're pushing towards is, kind of the experience that you might expect, even just from managing a device that's sitting right in front of you, right? So we want to be able to kind of give you the remote capabilities, configuring a BrightSign player as you would, sitting in front of even just a laptop, right? And being able to have that kind of experience on a BrightSign player remotely.
Well, Aaron, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for sharing these big updates to BrightAuthor Connected. The release is BrightAuthor Connected 1.6.52, and the release of the BrightSign OS is 8.4.10. So you can get those. They're available today. They're available from the downloads page at brightsign.biz.
Yep.
Or if you just launch your client, you should be able to get the update as well.
Yeah, and I want to say, yeah, thanks for having me. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And I understand that I'm the first guest from BrightSign actually on here, so I'll wear that badge with honor.
You're the
And,
first employee guest.
Yeah. Maybe I'll be the. Maybe I can next. I'll work on getting the most repeat appearances.
We'd love to have you
World's
back
favorite
anytime.
guest.
Totally. Well, you got to keep making new
Thanks.
features. That's why. That's how we're going to get you back. Right.
Well, yeah. It's our great engineering team that makes the features. I just get to take all the credit.
Let's show, what a lot of people don't know, Matt and I know this, we see this, there is a tremendous amount of work that goes into this. I mean, you breeze through in 5 minutes, talking about these features, but these are major updates, right? To the OS, to the client, to the server. There's a ton of work that goes into it from a lot of people.
Yeah, it's everything it's UI, it's back end. You said it was full stack, right?
Full stack.
It's a full stack change.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything from the player all the way through the server and down to the client.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. Well, it was awesome having you. We can't keep you for the entire show, unfortunately. We'd love to have you for the whole hour and then do Q&A at the end, but you've got a job you got to get back to. So it was awesome having you. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
All right.
Cool. Well, that was a good segment. We got to learn, all about the new features. So I think what we need to do next is let's get on to BrightAuthor Connected 101 topics, right?
Yeah, we've got to show people how to set up players and also use BrightAuthor Connected.
All right, so moving on to our next topic here, we're of course going to talk about Control Cloud. And like I said at the beginning, this is something that, if we had to pick a top feature, I think it's something that we really want to, emphasize and talk a lot about. So this is something we basically want to kind of riff on this concept, right? And I want to show visually some of the things that you can do with Control Cloud. I think that's really important to really show what this looks like, because we talk a lot about these concepts of management and control and that sort of thing, and it's a little bit abstract, when you're just kind of talking about it. So what I thought we would do, Matt,
it's much more. It's much better once you actually see the player on a network, right? You can really get in there and see some of the things that you can do.
Yep. So I'm going to sign in, and again, just to remind, I am control.bsn.cloud or BSN.cloud. I'm using a browser, signing in using an email address. I'm going to pick my network. The network is your grouping of players and content and users and other things, but primarily it's it starts with your players. So I'm going to take a look at my network tab here. I've got a whole collection of players. I got 6 of these online. In particular, I'm paying attention to these 4. on the right. So I've got an XD, set of XD 1034s, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And all of these appear within my network tab, meaning I have control of these players. I'm able to look at these through this control cloud view. Um, I can access, all the diagnostics of these players. All of them have been set up in different ways to use different content sources, right? So you can see local file, BSN. I got another local file. Um, I've got a partner application configuration. And that's to say that all of these are getting their content from different sources, entirely different workflows, but they're all part of the same management structure. And that's
Different
really
publishing methods, right?
different publishing methods, right? Exactly. So,
And then
if
on
you,
the right, so that's the actual player output
those are the player outputs. Yeah.
of those players. Wow, that's cool.
So as I'm dropping in here, I want to show this real quick just to remind people when you click that gear and you can scroll through, you can reboot, you can reprovision, you can see all of this stuff for the player, right? So you can check the snapshot, for example, to see what's playing. So now you can see on the right, this is what we've got playing. I hit a snapshot, you can actually see an image of it. So this is that diagnostics panel that's available on every player, but it's accessible here through this network tab. So these are remote diagnostics. And all of these players, regardless of how they're getting their content or what that content is, I can
So
access
you're in
all
a
of this.
web browser right now, but oh wow, there it is.
Yeah.
Those are
So
the
check it
4
out.
screens.
Yeah, I switched it up here. So let's take a look at the actual content real quick. So these are those 4 players, right? So these are physically running on my 4 screens. Um, Now imagine that these are in different places, right? Different rooms, different buildings, different physical locations. These could be anywhere. It doesn't really matter. So if you have different content needs, different workflows, different processes, um, this one in particular, this is running a BSN.cloud, or actually, I think this is a local file network actually. So this is going to be part of a video wall build out, right? So I'm just running some looping video content. I published it directly. This is a BSN.cloud content cloud presentation. So a complex multi-zone. Um, I've got feeds. I've got dynamic playlists. I've got HTML content. I've even got touch interaction. A lot of complexity. So, a typical corporate comms board, maybe a kiosk, that sort of thing. Again, all content cloud through our, CMS platform. And that's how this was published. So this is another example of a local file network. Pretty simple. This could be also done standalone. Just a simple 3-zone, a looping video, a weather widget, and then some sort of a text, element below. Published directly using the IP address of the player. So that's the local file, network option. This could also be spanned on a video wall too, if you wanted to. Now this one's the interesting one. This is a partner application. So this is built into that device setup. In this case, we pick Signage Live, and I provisioned a player to use Signage Live. So when that player boots up for the very first time, it connects to the Signage Live CMS platform. You activate your player, and then you work in that platform to develop your content, right? So that's how all of these CMS, these integrated CMS partners work, is it's completely seamless from that initial setup. And that's to me is the really important piece of this, is that we're looking at multiple different ways of flexibly working with content sources,
Yeah,
depending on
that's
what your needs are.
awesome. And there's so many different partner applications to choose from, right?
Yep,
And
exactly.
ways to publish based on your needs.
Yeah, and even within the partner ecosystem, there's differences between them. There's specialties. There's things that some do for certain industries that work really well.
One thing I wanted to mention too is that if you are sort of a network manager, or you're a network manager of a BrightSign network and you're the content person,
mhm.
something that's really great to do is have a setup that, like John has, where he can actually see the output of several players, but that output is affiliated with different groups of players. And then out in the field, maybe there's a network of dozens or hundreds of endpoints that are playing that same content, but he knows exactly what's playing because he can see the output of one of those endpoints at his physical location.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, for any of these content source types, especially BSN.cloud, right? We've talked about that a few times about how that publishing works. You can create your groups, create your schedules, put your content into those groups, put your players into those groups, So, if you had 5 players in the same group running the same content, you could have one physically in front of you that you see, that you have access to and can actually get some visibility to. And then the other ones could be somewhere completely different. They could be in lobby spaces and other buildings and that sort of thing. So the theme really is one of flexibility. Like that's the biggest piece of this is it's all about being flexible. It's giving you options. We don't want to force you down any one particular workflow. However, there's tremendous value in considering uh, packaging all of your players up into this BSN.cloud control cloud environment so that you can get not only the visibility of your players, but management, control, etc. And by the way, any of these players that I have provisioned the way they're provisioned in a couple button presses can be changed to something completely different. And that's really kind of my soapbox, if you will, to
Yeah,
kind of
and what I'll add too is if you're a BrightSign customer, meaning you own players, there's already a subscription that's free and available to BSN.cloud for you affiliated with that player. All you have to do is sign up for it.
Yeah, that's an important point, right? So the control cloud that we're talking about, this BSN.cloud account creation, managing these players on the network, that's completely free. So it's not
Yep.
like you have to sign up for a subscription service or pay anything. It's not a trial that turns to payment. It is part of the operating system of the players. You do, however, and this is a better way of explaining it, right? Depends on who you are in this, industry. If you are responsible for your signage at your company, then consider, roping your players into that account. Maybe you're an integrator or reseller and want to provide managed services. You could create that account, that BSN.cloud account. You could create that network. You could manage that for your customers and deploy players, choose the content sources they come from, and actually provide that added service to your customers. So it's a lot of different things to think about, right? But again, the theme is flexibility. So
Yeah, and we do offer our content management service too, which is a
right,
paid service. That's a paid subscription. And
right,
it does give you a lot of features that are, I think, incredibly valuable. But at base, we have this BSN.cloud thing that's, I think it's remarkable because
yeah,
I was at the company before it was in place.
right,
And it's a huge leap for us.
absolutely. Okay. All right, so we are at about half hour. So I was going to move to the next step. This is actually going to be really interesting, Bill. We have something a little bit different that we're going to do for our BrightAuthor Connected demo. Um, it's going to be similar to how we've been doing things. We talk about the building block concepts in BrightAuthor Connected, how to build presentations, that sort of thing. But I had a bit more of a concept in mind. So not only do I want to talk about these features that you can use in BrightAuthor Connected, but I also wanted to introduce some thoughts, maybe some ideas, maybe spark some imagination of interesting stuff you can do with our players, right? So the one thing this started as, and this is part of our recommendation for best practices, is when you're building a presentation, start with a concept, right? You and I, Matt, we're content creators, so we usually don't start at this point. We start way back at the beginning with something like Photoshop or
A
PowerPoint,
storyboard, maybe a
storyboard,
sketch.
sketch. Yeah, if you can draw. I can't draw anymore. So, all right.
Well,
So,
yeah. A lot of times I'll work in Keynote or PowerPoint, just
yeah,
drag in images from the internet to create a look, a
exactly.
mood.
So that's what we did here. I started in Photoshop. That's where all of my presentations start. The idea here is to create a multi-zone presentation. So we want to obviously demonstrate how to make use of zones. That's an important core building block of BrightAuthor Connected presentations. I'm going to make use of video, images, a live text widget, which is one of our widgets. We don't often get to show those widgets because we usually just focus on media. And then I'm going to provide some interaction. And those are the building blocks of the presentation. But the concept here is I want to take something that I found online. And by the way, I have no affiliation with this company. I just basically went to their website and snapshotted a bunch of their assets. But the concept here is I want to take something that looks like a really good online shopping experience and see if I could bring that down to a kiosk at a brick and mortar retail store, right? So let's bring some online shopping experience to a physical location, maybe bridge those two worlds a little bit.
And I did want to mention that it is really good to use an application like Photoshop or a photo editing application where you can count pixels, right? You want
Yeah,
to be able to know, okay, we've got a 1920 by 1080 canvas, we're working in HD, and you can really count those pixels. That's very helpful.
exactly, exactly. So let's do this. This is basically our zone layout of what we're going to build. So I'm going to start from scratch just for everybody's benefit. So we are going to call this our kiosk. So when you start a new presentation, give it a name. The publishing type, we've talked about this in Control Cloud. We talked about it with our player setup. Of course, this really determines how your content's getting to your player. We're using BrightAuthor Connected. I am going to use local file networking, which means I'm going to be building my presentation locally on my workstation, and then I'm going to publish that presentation directly to a BrightSign player using its IP address. So my BrightSign player that you see on the right with the blank purple screen, this has already been set up. It's provisioned, it's configured to be local file networking as its type. So we're primed and ready to go. So I'm going to create that. I'm going to use an XT1144. This is going to be a 1920 by 1080 landscape. That's the composition that I created in Photoshop. So that's going to be my working space for this presentation. So
John, is your preference, do you like working in local file networking as you're when you're iterating on a presentation?
I tend to, yeah, because there's pros and cons, right? So if you were to use, let's say, BSN.cloud, Content Cloud, or even a CMS partner, right? So these are cloud-based authoring and publishing services. So there's generally a little bit of a delay from the time that you put your content in there and tell it to go to the player and then time it reaches its player, because there's usually a check-in period or some kind of a synchronization process that occurs. Now with a local file network, you hit publish, it goes, as fast as it can get across your network and reach the player, it's instantaneous. So sometimes when I do iterate and I want to actually publish, test, publish, test, publish, test, yeah, I might use a local file networking just for speed.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think that's a good thing for people to think about.
Yep. And you can start, by the way, you can start local file networking. You can push this up to BSN.cloud Content Cloud and continue to work with it there, right? So you could prototype locally, individually, move it to your content cloud, and then work collaboratively with a team if you wanted to rope other people in and start expanding that way.
Totally.
So, all right. What I'm going to do, like I always do, on the left hand side here, because we're working locally, I have local assets, right? So I have a Christmas folder. I've got some cards, that sort of thing. Now, the idea is just to sort of explain the concept a little bit more. We're talking about a sales kiosk, but the idea is that I want to put together a little touchscreen driven kiosk, and I want to be able to pick a greeting card from a selection of greeting cards, scan it with my phone, shop for that card on my phone, customize it, and then have it mailed to someone as part of a holiday greeting card, right? So again, I found this service online. It's a random website I found, no affiliation. I just thought the shopping experience was pretty cool, right? So I thought, well, how could we turn this into a sales kiosk? And maybe if you had a store where you sold, holiday decorations, cards, that sort of thing. Let's maybe bridge these two worlds. Um, so it's an interesting thought, right? Like it may not be the most amazing execution of that, but it is something to consider that you can do with our players.
Well, I
So
also really like that idea because a lot of times a company will have a lot of assets. Maybe they have a graphic designer that worked on the website,
yeah,
and you can convert already existing assets into something that would look really good on digital signage.
Exactly. There you go. There you go. That's this omni-channel concept, right? This is a big popular term, right? Okay, so based on my composition Photoshop, we're going to build our zones, right? So first things first, I have a video zone that I'm going to drop on the left, and this is kind of an attract loop. I mean, there's not a whole lot of purpose to this other than some eye candy. It's holiday themed. It looks cool. So this is going to be a 960 by 1080. And by the way, as per our usual recommendations, always make your zone type match your content type. Always give your zones names. So this is our video loop. And more importantly, always make your content match your zone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click in here into the video loop zone, and then I'm going to find my loop. I've got a Christmas light rays center cut. So basically what I did is I took a 1920 by 1080 video, sliced down the middle to give a nice, cool effect in this zone, which you'll see here shortly. So that's our video loop on the left, nice and simple. Then what we're going to do is I'm going to build a countdown. So this is a countdown until December 25th. We'll call this the countdown zone. This is going to be an interesting one because I'm going to use a live text widget in here, and every day it's going to count down until we reach December 25th. And I'll show you how to make use of that. So we have 960 by 570 according to my Photoshop comp. So that's going to be my zone type there. Then I'm going to drop in another zone here. This will make a bit more sense when we start putting assets in. This is going to be my call to action button press. So we have some interaction that we're going to make use of here. And one of those things that we're going to do is we're going to have a button, and the button is going to be what triggers the QR code and the ability to actually shop for this card. So we're looking at 430 by 510. And again, this is all based on the comps. We're matching images to zones, zone to images, that sort of thing. So this is going to be our button zone. Give it a name. It's of a type image, etc. Now we have one more zone we're going to add. This one is going to be the card zone, right? So these are going to be the greeting cards that we can shop for. Now the properties of this, I'm checking my Photoshop just to make sure I match 530 by 510. So 530, 510. Now you can see, by the way, this is not the place that you want to iterate on designs, right? You want to have this figured out, locked in, ready to go, because this is really a difficult process to iterate here, right? You can iterate on the function of your presentation, but the design, not as much, because all you really get to work with is your layout, not really the visuals.
Yeah. It's not really where you want to do the layout of how it's going to look. You want to have that figured out already.
You want to have it figured out, exactly. Okay. So we got the video loops. And the other thing I'm going to do, by the way, is I've got this purple background. I want to change this to be white. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There we go. So we've got 6. All right. So just for fun, let's actually save this. And this is this iterative process that we're talking about. So I can hit publish. I'm going to hop over here to my local network. I'm going to find my XT1144, and then we're going to publish. And we're going to send basically what we have so far, right? Like this is it, right? We've got one video zone. We got a blank white background. We got a long ways to go.
Is that an infinite loop?
That is an infinite loop. Yeah.
I love those. They're so fun.
Yep. All right. So it's up and running. We know we're looking good so far. Now, which one do you want to tackle first? You want to do the countdown, or you want to do this touch interaction piece?
Let's do the countdown.
Let's do the countdown. All right, cool. So this is going to be an interesting widget. We've double-clicked the countdown zone. The countdown zone is 960, 570, right? So when we double-click in here, we can add our widgets. So I'm going to hop over here. Instead of an asset, I'm going to use a widget. These are components that are built into BrightAuthor Connected. There's some really cool ones in here. They're all very different. They serve different purposes. So I'm going to use this one called Live Text. So I'm going to drag and drop this up here. Now, this is a self-contained widget. I can use this to create a lot of different content in one place. So to work with it, you have to double click it. And what you see here is this canvas, this working space. This green or this white box with the green outline, this is the working space of the zone that you're in, not your screen, but the zone. So just keep that in mind. We want to fill this space with our content because we want to fill that zone. That can be a little bit, confusing because we are sort of nesting down into this presentation.
Yeah,
So
I get it.
I'm gonna add a couple of things, but actually, before I get ahead of myself, one thing I need to do first is I'm going to establish what's called a variable in our presentation. This is something we may or may not have touched on yet, but under your presentation settings, you can create what are called variables. These are multi-purpose. You can do whatever you want with them, right? There's a lot of flexibility that you can do with these things. So I'm going to add a variable, and I'm going to call this my countdown. That's the name of my variable. Today is December 15th. We have 10 more days. That's going to be my starting value of the variable because I'm publishing this today. And what I'm going to do is every day, I'm going to drop the value of that variable by 1 so that at midnight, the count goes down, right? So we're going to start at 10. I've got this variable. It's called countdown. So I set that up first. This is just something you'll see here in a second that I'm going to make use of in my live text widget. So I'm going to add an item. And let's see, we're going to do text. It's going to be fixed text, and I'm going to call this shopping days. That's going to be our content, and I am going to set the text parameters here to, let's see, 90. That's good. We're going to center this. And the other interesting thing you can do, by the way, when you're styling this, and this is, again, part of my original Photoshop composition, I can use a built-in system font, or I can push a custom font. And I happen to have a custom font, part of my Adobe Cloud subscription, called Montserrat. I don't know how you pronounce that, but it's a really cool font. So I'm going to bundle this into this presentation.
That's how I think that's right.
Something like that, right? Okay. So I'm going to set the font for that. So shopping days, and then I have one more here that I want to do. I'm going to try to center this here, and this one is just going to be fixed text. This will be left. So shopping days left. Maybe it was, let's play with the layout here a little bit. Let's do shopping and days. Yeah, that looks better.
Yeah, that looks good.
Something about that was not working for me. So, all right, so one more item, and this is going to be the cool one. So we're going to make a big number that shows the days left. And this one, instead of being fixed text, is going to be our user variable, which in this case we have 1. It's called countdown, right? So I have to change that to also use custom font. And then I'm going to set this, I think it's about 400 was the right number. Yeah, let's give this a shot. So I'm going to make sure these are all using my fonts. Perfect. All right. So let's go back. So again, we bundled all of this into our live text widget. It's a layer process, right? So we can build in layers and layers of content, text, images, colors, etc. So again, let's iterate. Let's just publish and see what this looks like. It's a good way to test. So we'll send this over. That's not bad.
Looking good.
A little bit
Maybe
cut off. Yeah.
Little cut off on the 0, but
so that's
an easy fix.
Good thing that we can fix here. So yeah, let's give it some more room. So we'll just move this down.
I love that that's a dynamic object too, right? It's going to automatically change.
Well, not yet, right? So it is a variable, it is dynamic, and we do have to program the change, right? So that's going to be the next challenge. All right, so there we go. 10 shopping days left. Perfect. All right, we did it. So that zone is set up. Now let's do the math, right? Let's do the thing that changes it every day. We're going to introduce an event. Remember, we are working with states and events. States, events, and commands are the three major things you have to know about BrightAuthor Connected. We're going to add an event, and the event is going to be let's use a time event. We're going to set the target state back, and we are going to do a daily timeout event at exactly midnight. Okay, so every day at midnight, something's going to happen. And the thing that's going to happen is going to be a command to take our variable. Oops, there we go. Now you can see it. I didn't realize you didn't see that. So let's see. What we did is we added an event. The event is the timeout every day at midnight. We're going to add a command, and the command is going to be to decrease our variable countdown by 1. So midnight every day, bam, we're going to do 1 day less. That's how we add that event. All right, so that zone is taken care of, right? So that's pretty cool. Then what we're going to do is hop over to our button zone, and we are going to grab a card button, right? So we're going to make this an interactive zone. This image is going to serve as our touch interface. So I'm going to add a touch event to this zone. We're going to come over here. We're going to drag and drop. We're going to connect that. We're going to transition it back because we're going to keep this on this button.
Can you tell us, just for one moment, just kind of go over what like a state and an event is?
Yep. So these are the building blocks, right? So the large block that you see here, whether it's a media item or a widget, is what we consider the state. It's the thing that's happening right now. It's what's on screen. It's what we're showing. It's what's currently being processed,
Content,
right?
usually.
Content, usually, right. The event is the thing that this is waiting for, right? So some event is going to occur, and it's going to change what happens on screen, right? So that's why we call it an event-driven process. The
And it
thing
might
that's
be an
going to
automatic event. It might be
Sure.
based on time. It could be based on time code. It could be a touch. It could be from another player. It could be a UDP command. There's a bunch of them.
Lots of them, right? This one will be touch, right? So my event is going to be a touch, and I'm going to draw a region on this button because I want someone to touch here. That's the event that I'm waiting for. As soon as someone touches that button, something is going to happen. Now, the something is actually going to be a zone message because I want to talk to the other zone, and you'll see why in a second. So I'm going to send a zone message, and I'm going to call it generate. I want to generate a card. Okay. That's all it is. And now I'm gonna make sure that when I touch this button, I remain on this. You can just keep clicking the button, click the button, send a message, send a message. So we can generate new content from that other zone very simply. All right, so moving along, let's go to our card zone. Now the card zone is going to be kind of interesting because we are going to start on kind of a placeholder. This is a state, right? So this is our home state, our landing image. This is kind of the image we start with because we haven't selected a product yet. So we're going to start here, and what we're going to wait for is an event, and the event, of course, is that zone message that we set up, right? So the other zone is going to tell this zone, hey, I need you to do something. What I need you to do is show some content. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to bundle all of this up into a media list, right? So I'm going to put all of my products that I have available. I'm going to package them up into this playlist. So I have 8 cards. They're called group 1 through 8. I'm going to drag and drop. I'm going to put them in here, 1 through 8. The order in this case doesn't matter because what I'm actually going to do for this playlist is I'm going to randomize it, right? So my
The media
playback,
list is my new favorite widget.
I do like it a lot, and there's a lot of little hidden tricks and features you can do. So what I don't want to do is start from the index. I don't want to start at 0. What I want to do is shuffle. I want something random. I want you to hit the button. I want to see a random product come up on the screen, right? So that's our playlist. This is good. This is perfect. This is exactly what we want. Now we have to do some events. So the first event is that we're listening for a zone message to generate. So we're going to go from our landing image over to our playlist, and we're going to randomly generate some content. Now, while we're on that content, let's say we want to generate another random image. We have to listen for it here. So we're going to do generate, and that will make sure that we come back and generate a new image every time we hit the button. And then as an additional flourish, we could come in here and do a timeout. So if nobody touches anything after, let's say, 15 seconds, well, then we just go back to the beginning, right? So this should, if my math is right, be everything we need. So let's give it a shot.
And one zone is now talking to another zone, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. So with any luck, let's give it a try, right? So I'm gonna literally walk over to my touch screen and I'm gonna hit the random card button and let's see what happens. Bam, there we go. That's a random card. Okay, so let me hit it again. It works. New random card, right? So what's cool is I can hit this QR code on my phone and I can now shop for that card on my phone, take it with me, customize it, send it off, right? So this is the two worlds that we're bridging, right? The online shopping experience with the physical retail experience. I've got a touch screen in front of me and I'm now interacting with this in a store. And hey, there's our timeout. That actually worked too. So random card, let's generate a new one, generate a new one. By the way, these are real QR codes. You could hit this with your phone and this will pull up. So it's pretty cool effect.
And you got this off of their website, I assume?
I did. So this is this company is called Postable. Again, no affiliation. I don't really know who they are. This just happens to be, something that I thought was interesting to demonstrate. So if you check this out, right? So here's what this actually looks like, right? So I'm gonna walk up to this. I'm gonna use my phone camera. I'm gonna random card. I'm gonna hit this QR code. Hey, check it out. I can shop for this card, customize it, and then ship it.
Cool, Don, right? You bring in ROI. Love it.
Exactly. So there you go. There's my quick and dirty shopping kiosk demo thing.
Okay.
And with that, I'm out of breath. So
that was a whirlwind. That was impressive. Right? What a finale.
There you go. And it all worked the first time. Pretty cool.
Well, you want to take a few questions?
Yep, I think it's time. Let's do some questions.
All right. So this one's good. All right. So their desktop client is saying that there's no updates available. So how can the person see these changes?
Okay.
And what I would say is, like, if there's maybe your registry might be out of date.
No, actually, Matt. So if you recall, it depends on your version. But if your current desktop version is before a certain cutoff, I don't remember exactly what it was. We sent out a notice, right, to everyone. It may not have reached, every single person, obviously, but I would just manually update it from the website because there was a certain version that no longer supported the auto update. So you did actually have to make a manual jump to get current, essentially, with our releases. So
BrightSign.biz downloads.
Yeah.
And you can just go to BrightSign.biz and navigate to downloads, or /downloads is also the URL.
Yeah. At the time of this show, 1.6.52 is what you're looking for.
Yeah. Okay. Next question. This one, I'm not quite sure. When BrightAuthor connected, when can variables be sent to the players? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, so it's part of the presentation, right? So one of the things that I did in that presentation in BrightAuthor Connected was part of the presentation settings was that you can create variables. When you create those variables and then you publish that presentation to the player, those variables now exist on the player and then can be used, right? So they don't exist on the player until you publish for the very first time, but you make them as part of your presentation build, if that makes sense.
They live in the player, and then you would send a UDP command from, like, a phone or from another device, like
Well, you can do a
a few
lot with
shows ago.
variables. Like you don't, it doesn't have to be UDP, right? So variable is just it's a catch-all to do a lot of different things, right? UDP is
Right.
one of those interesting things because there is a relationship between UDP messaging. If you're using a control system or even another BrightSign player, you can work with those UDP messages and your variables, but you don't have to, right? They're not, exclusive to each other. So I happen to use a variable here as just a bare number that I just, lower or raise the value of, and that's kind of it.
And we actually had an episode that goes into a little more detail about variables and using command. It's basically like using commands and variables.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can check that out in the archive, because now we have
an archive.
content.
Yep.
All right, next question. Here we go. Can the LTE modem be used to connect to other BrightSign devices to the internet, acting like a Wi-Fi access point? What do you think about that one?
Ooh, this is where
I
we
think that
wish
would
we
be,
had Aaron for the rest of the show, right?
yeah, that would be that's like an edge case. I have not heard of that being done.
Let's see if we can follow up with that person after, because I know, not to say yes that it could be, but I know there's been a lot of extensions. There's been a lot of node, applications. There's been a lot of like additional development, and we've seen some really unusual things done with BrightSign players. So it
Yeah,
wouldn't
it
surprise me if
certainly
there's
is
something that could be
possible.
done, but certainly not out of the box.
Yeah. Okay. And then this is our last question that I believe we have. It's a good one. When you say you can access the player from BrightAuthor Connected, what happens if the card is corrupted? Would you be able to access the player still?
You should actually. Um, Yes, because even if and you can try this yourself too, by the way, you can take a player, you can pull the card out completely, plug it in, turn it on, and you can access its diagnostics page. You can hit the IP address of the player, and I'm reasonably certain you can still access that remotely. I've done this a lot where I've actually pulled a card, still can access the remote diagnostics from it. So I don't know that the card necessarily precludes you from accessing the player, but it is going to give you a lot of trouble, certainly with reprovisioning it, resetting it up, maybe factory resetting it, that sort of thing, because there does need to be some I/O on that card. So yeah, you should still be able to access the diagnostics.
And I wanted to mention one thing. One of the updates that was released is if you go into the cog icon from the player tab and you look at the SD tab from the remote diagnostic web server,
Yep.
and you click on it, you can actually at the very bottom see the health of the SD card.
Yeah.
So if your SD card has been running for a long time, it might have a number that's high, and that means that it is actually getting worn out. So you might want to replace it before it has too many cycles. But
Yeah, absolutely.
if you get if you order SD cards from us, they are optimized to run thousands and thousands of cycles.
Yeah, they are the industrial cards. Yeah, they don't last forever. I mean, that's
Nope.
never possible with these cards. But yeah, like you said, you can check the health. That's a really handy way to keep an eye on it.
All right. Well, that wraps it up for our questions. What a great show, John.
Awesome. Hey, we ended on time this time. It's amazing.
I know that we did. I really
Alrighty.
loved the new content you put together. It was great for the holiday, and I
Yeah.
think it was also really good for small business owners or anybody who is really working on coming up with creative ways to use the BrightSign players. So thanks for that.
Yeah, that's the hope, is just, not only instruct on our software and ecosystem, but maybe provide some ideas, inspirations, that sort of thing. So that's always the goal. So, but yeah, for everyone watching, obviously have a great end of your week, have a great holiday, and we will be back early next year.
Yeah, we look forward to a whole new year of lots of new content and perhaps some more special guests from employees along with our partners. We're really excited to bring some partners in and feature some of the CMSs that we've been talking about. And yes, happy holidays to everyone. Thanks for such a great year. We're really, really excited for 2022. And that's it.
That's it.
Wrapping it up.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.